What's up, weirdos? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Felicia. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. So I got a request on my channel to review It from 2017, and I was like, oh right, like I didn't have my YouTube channel when that movie came out, but it is like one of my favorites. I have a excessively large Pennywise collection right now. It's not a problem. It's a problem. So it seems like a good opportunity to go ahead and review It and then talk about what we know about It Chapter 2 coming out in September. So this video is going to be sort of like in two parts. Part 1, review. Part 2, what do we know? Just a little disclaimer for you. So I've never read It. It is on my list to do before the new movie comes out, but I haven't read it, so I'm really just basing this on the movie. I might relate to the miniseries a little bit, but mostly talking about the 2017 It. So this movie came out in the fall of 2017. It was written by Gary Dauberman, who is really killing it in the horror game. So he wrote the new Pet Sematary that's coming out in April. He wrote Annabelle. He wrote The Nun. He also is writing the new movie version of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I just can't wait for. And it was directed by Andy Muschietti, who wrote and directed Mama. That came out in, I think, 2013. I remember really loving that movie when I first saw it. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I should check it out again because I remember I really had a good time watching it. So I do have to say that when I first saw this movie in theaters, honestly, bad experience because I showed up late, classic, and then I had to sit in like the first row, and so I watched the movie literally like this, and like I could see sort of, and like I could tell things were scary, but things were also sort of like warped, and so like my perspective was like weird. But don't worry, I did watch it again later, and then I just rewatched it yesterday to talk about it for this video, and like I was like, dang, like this movie is amazing. Like it is so good. First of all, I already talked about it a little, but Pennywise. Bill Skarsgård is amazing in this movie. His physicality is so spot on. His eye acting is so spot on. He's the perfect blend of creepy and scary and playful. So you understand how he lures kids to him, and then you get the like horror factor later. He also has to do so much with just his body. He only has, get this, 4 minutes of dialogue in the entire film, which was wild for me to find or research. I was like, yeah, like he really doesn't talk very much, but his physicality is the character. And so like even when he is just standing still, like when he's in front of the house with all the balloons, he's just fully standing still doing nothing. Like I am experiencing a scene, if that makes sense. Like I am fully experiencing that whole scene by watching him stand still. And I just think that, I just don't think they could have found a better actor to be that role. I think he's so amazing. Also, a sort of sad fun fact is that Bill Skarsgård had a bunch of nightmares during and after the filming of this because it was like so intense that he kept having nightmares about it, and I was like, oh, that's so sad. And like there was actually like when they were talking about it chapter 2, there was like a little bit of rumoring of like, oh, like maybe he can't do it because like he was so scarred from filming the first one, but thankfully like obviously it's all fine now and he's doing it. But I was like, dang, like that probably is true, like of people that make horror movies, that sometimes they also have nightmares after filming. Like I was like, oh dang. Like I remember I talked about this on my podcast, Sinister Sisters, with my BFF Lauren Harris, but we talked about Janet Leigh and Psycho, and like after Psycho, like since then she's never taken a shower. Like she only takes baths because she was like very scarred from filming that shower scene. And I was like, whoa. Now, of course, also all the kids are incredible in this movie. They are such good little actors. My favorite being Jack Dylan Grazer, and I will tell you a couple reasons why. One, because he's adorable and hilarious in this movie. Like, he is so good. And then second of all, because I read a couple things that just like cracked me up. One is that he came up with some of his own jokes, and then also like some jokes for the other characters because he's just like such a smart little thing. And then also he was one of the first ones to film a scene with Pennywise, and so they were in this scene, and Bill Skarsgård, like he was seeing the pure terror on this kid's face, and at the end of the scene he literally was like, are you okay? Like because it felt so real. And the kid immediately just like broke out of the scene. It was like, yeah, and I love what you're doing with the character Pennywise. And like that is like so amazing to me that he can have like such professionalism to be like fully in the horror of the moment and look so terrified and be so good, and then immediately just be like, yeah, and anyways, we're talking like 2 adults here, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, dang, that's pretty cool. Something else that's really nice to know about this It movie that I love so much is that it is Stephen King approved. So he saw a screening and was like, you did a great job. It was awesome, because sometimes he hasn't liked how filmmakers interpret his books. I think most famously The Shining, he didn't like what they did with it. I kind of love The Shining, but you know, but yeah, so, and he really liked this film and he thought it really spoke well to the book that he wrote, and that's just like nice to know. And I guess the last thing I want to say is just like the team for this movie was so good. Like the script is really strong, and that is what can make or break a horror movie, because you can have as many like amazing visual effects as you want, but like if the script is bad, that is what is like screaming out from what you're watching. And this movie, the script is really good. The directing is really, really good. The costume design is really good. The makeup of how they made Pennywise is really good. And from what I understand, much closer to how he is described in the book. And then the cinematography. So Chung Hoon Chung is the cinematographer for it, and he also did Old Boy, which is one of the most like visually stunning movies I've ever seen. I feel like you can really feel his touch and influence on it. Like the movie is, first of all, like yes, it's beautifully shot, but it's also like very visually exciting. Like everything about it, from the times where like big scares are happening to when they're just like all by the creek, like all of it is like visually exciting to look at. And I think that's really from Chung Hoon Chung. Okay, I feel like, once again, like most people have seen this movie, but I will still do my ratings. So The Scare gets a 4. I think this is a very scary clown movie. The gore also gets a 4. I really appreciated that they amped up the gore in this. Like, from the opening scene of Georgie, like that moment of gore, I was like shocked. I was like, dang, like this is about to be intense. Like that moment was so good. The cheese gets a 2 for me. I do really like a lot of like the kid jokes and humor, and like how much the kids like say the F word. Like I just like love that. Because it is like, that's what you do when you're a kid, when you're trying to like be strong and act tough. Like you're just like replicating what you think looks strong or tough. And so some of that sometimes feels a little cheesy, but only in like the best way of like, these are kids, not in like a dumb way. And overall, you guessed it, I'm giving it a 5. I love it. I have too many Pennywises. Anyways, now just to say some of my favorite scenes. I think my favorite scene of the movie is the blood sink with Beverly, with the blood shooting out. There is something about that scene. I mean, and in the miniseries too, I thought it was amazing, but in this one, it's like so glorious. Is that the word I'm looking for? Like that scene in particular, I feel like has like Chung Hoon Chung written all over it. But like that scene is so overwhelming, and like my jaw was just like, and like yes, it's disgusting, but it is also somehow so beautiful to see this room just like turned red. Also, I already mentioned it, but I think the opening scene is so perfectly crafted. I think it is a perfect representation of what that scene wants to be. I think it's like, yay the miniseries, yay the scene. They brought extra gore into it. They brought extra fear into it. Like when the kid's like running and he like hits something and falls back, like that moment I was like, whoa, because like I already was like wanting to be scared before like we even saw Pennywise. And I was like, that is like expert filmmaking. I also just love the entire abandoned house scene with Pennywise and all the kids fighting. Like that is so good. And then, oh my god, like the floating children is like the most beautifully done imagery like ever. It's so, so good. Okay, I think it's clear I love this movie. So now let's talk about it, Chapter 2. So it's coming out on September 6th, 2019. We don't know when the trailer is gonna drop yet, but I think most people agree it's probably gonna be around the Pet Sematary release. Like that just makes the most sense. Stephen King, Gary Dauberman, like it all just makes sense. I will quickly go through like the main casting of it. So we have James McAvoy, who I am obsessed with, as Bill. We have Jay Ryan as Ben, Jessica Chastain as Beverly, Bill Hader as Richie, which is brilliant casting, Isaiah Mustafa as Mike, and James Rascone as Eddie, and then Andy Bean as Stan. So I think one of the challenges of it, which I experienced in the miniseries, and I'm curious if I'm gonna experience as well in it, Chapter 2, is that the kid's story somehow feels much more exciting than the adults. And maybe that's because like the kid's story sort of had this like It's like that Goonies vibe, like we're all in this together, we're all gonna fight this monster. Like, it feels so exciting, and there's something about the adults coming back that just never feels as satisfying for some reason, but I'm really hoping they're able to like combat that in It Chapter 2. I know in like the first It and this one, they are going back to the book a lot more than the miniseries did, and so I think that will probably help us. Like, I know they're dealing with like the giant turtle god that's sort of like the antithesis of Pennywise, and the turtle god is like telling Bill like, you need to go fight Pennywise again, and he's like, okay, I'll get everyone together. So like, we are gonna have some of that like Stephen King mythology be in this movie more, I think. But we do also know that we are gonna get a lot of flashbacks of the kids, so the kids are also gonna be in this movie in flashbacks, and so maybe that will also help balance the second movie and keep it as exciting as the first one, and as the miniseries did, but I think even more so in this. We're gonna see it in multiple forms and not just Pennywise the dancing clown, so I'm really excited for what they do with that. Like, I think it is gonna like have some more sci-fi elements than we are used to in a lot of Stephen King movies, and I think that's gonna be really cool. Once again, It Chapter 2 is coming out on September 6th, 2019, which also, if you didn't know, they always do a fun game with the number 27. So of course it comes around every 27 years, and they also make the release date equal 27. So they did that with the first movie, and they're also doing it with this one. So you have September 9 plus 6 plus 2 plus 1 plus 9. So that's like the full date, and that equals 27. So that's just like a fun thing they do, which I think is really cool. But yeah, if you guys know any more information about It Chapter 2 that you want to leave down below for everyone to see, please feel free to, and let me know if you're excited about the movie. Let me know what you're most excited about for It Chapter 2. For me, I just want to see more Bill Skarsgård. I just want to see him more as Pennywise. That's really what I'm most excited for. So yeah, my name's Felicia. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a nice screen. Bye.